Okay, welcome back. We just finished talking about the consumer reluctance story. Next, we're talking about electronic data interchange. I mentioned that this is kind of a dying breed. There's still some out there, but most people have replaced it with different types of technologies. So let me ask you some questions. This is going to be one of those ones about what's the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. You know, which one is most appropriate for this versus that. Or, you know, if I want to send a message to a bunch of people or maybe a few people, those kinds of things. The next one talks about the integrity portion of that. So what's the difference between encryption and integrity checking? That'd be a good question. Like, what is it? What does that mean? Does it care about whether or not some people will get to see the data? Is that a concern of integrity? The chain of trust. Using an SSL certificate signed by somebody at the top of a trust pyramid means that if I trust them and you trust them, then we have a trust between the two of us. But if I don't use that chain of trust and I have a self-signing certificate, then the whole thing's a house of cards and no one believes anything. Use of search engine. So that's kind of sort of simple. I may describe like the difference between for example, why is mobile or desktop use of search engines different, as an example? That's kind of a weird one. But, you know, who uses search engines and why? What platform, what OS, you know, how big is Google? Those kinds of questions. The next one talks about the search engine itself. So this may be a question like the parts of the search engine. Well, not engine, parts of the search thing. It's kind of hard to describe, isn't it? Remember how, you know, there's a series of bots that go out and a database and all the rest of that stuff. So I'm going to ask you some questions about how search parts work. The next one talks about the robots text file. If you recall, there's two ways you can do this. You can do a text file that you put in your page, and that's kind of the older standard, but it still works. And then the other one is using a meta tag, and it can be a little bit more specific. Either way, it's a way you control whether or not you want something scanned on a search engine. Cool. All right, the next one is the search engine results page, SERP. So I'm going to be asking you some questions like, what control do you have over that? What information shows up on the search engine results page, and what control do you have over it? I mean, where did they get this part? Where did they get this part? Where did they get this part? And how does it go up and down on the page? Okay, cool. Keywords. You know, I kind of poo-pooed the idea that keywords are, used to be, you could put beanie baby, beanie baby, 100 times, and it would increase your score when searching for beanie babies. And now that they've gotten smarter, and if you have repeated words in there, they just throw away the repeated ones, so you're wasting your time. But keywords are still valid. There are clearly lots of good ways you could be using these things. So yeah, tell me more about that. Google AdWords. So AdWords is a program, a system where web pages and web companies can go to Google and say, look, I want more business coming to my website, and so I'm willing to pay you to set up advertising so I can get higher search engine results page. Yes. Okay, chapter 14, we're talking about JavaScript. Okay, just for some clarity, JavaScript has no relation to Java, although I just graded some test questions where that's not immediately clear. Trust me, yeah, that's correct. I'm going to be asking some questions about like the alert feature of JavaScript, and what does it do, and how does it operate, and what am I going to see on the screen? What do I have to do to make it go away? Adding JavaScript. Just like in CSS, there's lots of ways you can add CSS. I mean, you could do an inline, you can do an embedded kind of thing, you can do an external, those kinds of things. Well, there may be some similar ways you can put JavaScript inside your web page. I might ask you some questions along those lines. The events. I may ask you some questions about, now, which of the following are valid events that JavaScript can handle. Talking about, you move the mouse and keyboard activities and things like that. So yeah, those are all good events. Programming concepts. Now, this is not going to be tough, okay? I promise. It's not going to be tough. But I am going to ask you some questions about, things like, statement order and how to, what order in which things occur and things like that. I mean, not too complicated, trust me. You don't have to be a programmer to do that. JavaScript functions. If just like in CSS, if you're gonna apply a style in CSS multiple times, then it just kind of makes sense to put it once up at the top and then call for it someplace, right? I mean, yeah, you could copy and paste it over and over and over, but wouldn't it make sense to just have a selector up there? Well, I'm going to ask you some similar questions with regard to functions in JavaScript. Okay, 2 extra credit questions. And I'm actually going to give you a table. It has no CSS whatsoever. And then I'm going to say, write me 1 or 2 lines of CSS. This is not going to be a tough. That's quite literally 1 or 2 lines of CSS to make it do whatever it is I ask you to make it do. Same thing on the form example. I'm going to give you a fully operational form with a spot where I want you to write some CSS. Again, not going to be. It should not take you a long time. Please don't skip over the extra credit. You're leaving money on the table. Okay, we've reached the end of the list. I wish you guys well. And this is going to be my last video for you guys. So perhaps I'll see you again in some other video or some other course. But I wish you guys well.